So, when did you first arrive to Worthington?
Well, and I was in the military. I was in the military back in the day. I met my wife, who is from Bemidji, Minnesota. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. So you can see the difference there a little bit. You know, she's country and I'm city, and that's how it went. So I met her. Back then, we got married in 1978, and then we moved to Worthington after getting out of the military. She left the military after we had our first child, Nicole, because we had an alert one day. She was only like 2 months old, my little daughter. We had an alert, and we didn't know where our company was going to send us off to some country. We didn't have anybody to take care of the child. We would have had to leave her behind until family came to get her at the fort. So then she got out after that. So I stayed in the military from then on, and then I just went ahead and after I was done, I moved to Colorado, where I got a job as an arcade manager with Bally's Family Fun Center. And that was a job I can get. I mean, you had to get a job, you know, I had mouths to feed. And from there, the job, we were trying to get to Minnesota. So the job said that they opened up a store. It was called Northland Mall back here in Worthington when we had a mall here on Oxford Street. And Northland Mall is where they opened up the arcade, Bally's Family Fun Center here. And they sent me as a manager, and that got us close enough to Bemidji. So we moved here in 1983. And that's how we got here to Worthington, Minnesota. We saw a sign as we drove into Minnesota back then. We saw a sign coming into Worthington, and we looked at it, and it said, "You'll get to love us." It was on the highway, and I said, "Okay." We were only going to stay 6 months, is what we were going to do. We were going to stay 6 months because we had all our furniture and everything sent off to Bemidji, Minnesota. That's where we were going to live. We were going to make that home. But we stayed, and my second daughter was born here. And then after she was born, and then my first daughter was starting to go to school, and then just kept going. So I said, you know what, beautiful town, excellent place to raise kids, which it is. And from there, we just stayed. And my gals graduated from this district. Actually, from this district, they graduated, both did. And that's how I got to Minnesota. That's how I got here from my wife, is actually how I got here to Minnesota.
So, where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, specifically Greenpoint Avenue, Greenpoint. And I was born and raised there. And I became an auxiliary New York City police officer there through the studies. But then at that time, they laid off a lot of the police force during that time. I guess it was a financial issue in those days, remembering right. So then, well, you're out of work, you're out of job. And I said, well, what am I going to do? So I sat on the windowsill of our house, sat there on the windowsill, opened up a Reader's Digest, and out of the Reader's Digest came a little card, and the card fell on the floor. And I remember that, and I picked it up, and it says, Army, be all you can be. And I looked at that, and I said, well, my dad is a veteran from the Korean War, and he just passed away about 3 years ago. So I picked it up, and I looked at the card. Oh, yeah, be all you can be, $411.27 a month. And I said, well, that's better than zero. I was looking at my pocket, I got nothing. So then I joined the military. Then I remember talking to my dad. You know, I was 19. You know, but you always discuss things. I always discussed it with my dad. Let him know, get an opinion. He's been on Earth longer than me. He's mentor. You know. So I said, Dad, you know, I decided to go ahead and go in the military and to be a soldier. And he looked at me and he says, well, be a good one. That's what he said to me. So I went off, joined in 1975, Fort Dix, New Jersey, to Fort Hood, Texas, to Camp Casey, Korea, then to Japan, and then made my way around the world. And yeah, that's how, you know, I've been in the military spanning, about 16 to 18 years around there, on and off, because when I got out of the regular military, I went into the reserves. And in the reserves, I was with the 452nd Combat Support, which is the supply company at that time. And we were deployed to Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, where they sent us off. We were there about 9 months. And, you know, and it was something. It was an adventure for sure, but toughest thing about that is leaving the families at home behind, and tough thing, but you go to do it because when your country calls, you go, and you take care of the business in hand, and you come home, and that's how, my span in the military.
So when you lived in Worthington, what was the majority of your career here?
My career, I was a arcade manager for about 9 years. Then I went over again to Desert Storm in 1990-91. I came back after the Desert Storm. I came back and I went to work, and I said, so after you go to get sent off to another country during wartime, and then you come back in the peacetime, you kind of go, okay, it's not exciting now for some reason, So what I did is that I saw an article in the paper. It said that the sheriff's department were looking for corrections officers. So then I applied there for the corrections officer with Nobles County Sheriff's Department. During that stint, I got a job there. I worked there for about four years or so, and also at the same time worked with the Worthington Police Department as a 911 operator, dispatcher. And from there, I kept going, and I said, well, I need to kind of slow it down a little bit. So then I went and worked at a convenience store, Co-op Oil. Was there for about 2 years. And I remember listening to radio. We had little radio on, and I'm listening to it, and then it said that South of Minnesota Opportunity Council, SMOC, was looking for a community connector. And I listened to it, and I went, So I went ahead and applied for that. I said, let me apply for that. So I went down and applied, and they interviewed me. So after the interview, Jerry Faola, who was running the Community Connectors at that time, he was in charge of community ed at the time, the community ed administrator, and gave me the job, and that started in 1999. Yes, I remember starting with the Community Connectors back in 1999 when I got hired by Jerry Faola, and went through all the years, and then finished up with Sharon Johnson, who is now the administrator for community ed. Lovely person, just she cares a lot about the people. Make sure that everybody is just taking care of the business at hand, and just a wonderful person. So I really appreciate all that she's done for me throughout my career there, and she cares. And I just retired here about 3 months ago. So 3 or 4 months ago, I retired from doing that. So that's what I did for a little while. So odd jobs here and there, but that's what I did. As a community connector, we helped the local population of, helping with either immigration issues, transportation issues, newcomers coming into the city from all walks of life. Anyone that came into the office received help somehow. If we could, we find a way to help them and to guide them and to teach them. Community ed is not only just giving them the help that they need. They ask, it could be anything. It could be anything from turning on the lights, landlords disputes, attorneys that they need, any little thing. How do I buy a house? Where do I go to learn to buy a house? How do I get my driver's license? Issues like that. It could be anything. Every day that I've worked as a community connector, every day was different. Every day you never knew who was going to come into the door and what issues you had. My first case was a Laotian family whose house burned down. I mean, it just burned. And then I picked them up, their case, and then I went ahead and we went all over the place, and we got them all, everything taken care of. And that's how, in other words, trial by fire, pretty much, almost, my first case. And then from there, and just enjoying just doing that, helping people, helping each other. This is our city. This is our neighborhoods. The people that you see in the store, the people that you see at the banks or at the hospitals, they're us. We're neighbors. That's who we're going to see. So when we see each other, if we need a hand, it's like anything else. You pick up and you say, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And if I don't know how, I'm going to find someone who knows how to help you. It's just giving that, going the extra mile, going the extra, just the extra to do that for each other. Because neighborhood, the first word is neighbor. The first word of that is neighbor. And I enjoyed it for, what was that, about almost 25, 26 years that I did that. I miss it. I still have folks that still come and talk to me and ask me my opinion and things like that. And I go, well, let's see, let's look at it. You always give your time. You know, you always give your time to the people. Care about each other. You know, we only have. I miss it quite a bit. I really do miss it quite a bit because, and the only thing I just feel sad about is that I can only do it once. So I tell people, and the young ones, especially young ones, I say, remember, you're here now, you have your youth, you only have one shot at it. You only have one shot. Make it count. And when you pave the road, when you go in front, if you're going in front and you're a leader, go in front and just make a golden road for others to follow. And just, so that way, future generations, the young folks, the young population that is in this school right now, they're our future, our doctors, our lawyers, our police departments, our fire departments, all of those. I told them, especially when they came in, when they were young at that time, when they were coming with their parents, if they were old enough and they go to school, they say, hey, what school you go to? I say, I go here. Oh, what you study to be? Well, I don't know yet. Okay, that's fine. So what do you think? Well, I like to be, mostly everybody wants to be a police officer. Well, that's cool. And I tell them, I said, that's cool because I'm getting older and I'm gonna need some protection. So, you know, that's how that goes. And they laugh and I say, yeah, that's true. If you wanna learn to be a doctor, you can do that too. Because I'm getting older. I used to joke around with them a lot like that. I'm getting older. I might need you as a doctor. You don't know. So it's best, and my philosophy is to make sure that you teach, not just help, but teach so they can help themselves, whoever they are. We worked with the Spanish population, the African population, the Asian, anyone that came in, people from all walks of life. And the way we handled the language is that we went on the language line. We got on there and then we go and communicate. Body language works sometimes. You know, it works sometimes, but it's pretty neat when you go on the language line and you can communicate with the person. And the biggest thing is they remember that years later. They'll either see you and say, "Oh, I remember when you helped my husband, or you helped my dad, or you helped my." And I said, "Well, yeah. Well, I'm glad that we could be a help, you know, because it's what do the right thing. My philosophy is just do the right thing."
Is there a distinct memory or from when you worked in that position that just resonated with you or lasted with you?
Yeah, well, with confidentiality, sometimes you gotta be careful when you tell stories. But I think this one here touched me in a way. This is years ago. I'm going to say now, by now, about 19 years. I went up to an apartment complex to help a family, and their young one had come out. I would say he was like 6 or 8 years old, around there, and he was drawing, just doing some casual drawings. And I looked at it, I said, wow, he liked doing U.S. flags and eagles. I said, man, that looks sharp. But he had it on some real just paper that was wrinkled up. I said, don't you have any paper, really? The drawing paper? I says, no. He says, no. I said, oh, okay. So when I left, I didn't tell him. I left, so I went back to community ed, and I said, do we have any extra or drawing paper, actual good drawing paper, reams that I can bring a young man? And they said, yeah. And I said, so I took a couple of big reams, and I went back to the apartment. Man, he said, see me smiling. And I said, here you go. And then he told me, I'm going to draw you something good. I said, okay, cool. So then I believe is how this happened, is that he came by with his mom and dad over to my office, and he had the picture. He put his initials on it. It was a shield. I still have it too. I should have brought it with me. But I'm always afraid that I might misplace it, so I don't want to lose that thing. So it was a shield with a big eagle on it, a U.S. shield, a flag, and with the eagle on it. It was just awesome. So I attached it up to my wall. It had his initials on there. But you think either he told me his name, because I was mostly talking to the parents, or he just put his initials, but I never got to know his whole name or his name. Actually, I said, wow. So I'm going to say about 17 years later, I had a couple of young gentlemen come into my office one day asking for some questions about where they can get, I think it was something with transportation. Yes, it was transportation, and how to do some transferring of titles. Yeah, I remember that. And I said, oh. And one of the young men looks up on my wall and he says, oh, I see you kept my picture. And I got flabbergasted. I said, are you WT? That's all I could say to the young man. I apologized to him. I said, are you WT? He says, yeah. He says, wow. And he was shocked that I even kept it because it's a lot of years. And every time we moved the office, we moved from Nobles to a different place, from Noble Street over to Community Ed Building, and now we're at the other school, at the Learning Center. And I always had a picture. It was always in my office, tacked up on the wall. Always kept it, always kept. Still have it today, tacked up in my house, in my office, in there. So, and I says, you know what I want you to do, young man? I want you to go ahead and sign this thing so I will never forget who you are, okay? I always thought about him too. I look up sometimes, I said, WT, what would that be? Did he tell me? Did he tell me? I couldn't remember. So then that one stuck out, and like that. And then when parents come in and they're appreciative of, helping their child through some rough times or anything, if a medical issue comes up, they didn't know how to take care of it, and you guide them through the paperwork and stuff, and they get it done. It was awesome. I think a lot of it does. All of them touched my heart. All of them did. Every single one of them. Every one of them meant something to me. They do, because they're human beings. They're us.
How's Worthington compared to when you first got here to now?
Oh, when I first moved here, the plant that was here at the time, I was trying to remember what the name of the plant was. It had closed down. Myself and Brenda moved here, and it was like, we had the mall, very busy, and it was like, I think that there was not very many different cultures here at the time. That we had like a few Spanish persons. We did have the Asian population, yes, and during the time, I believe Vietnamese, Laotian, the population there. But then as the years went by and went by and went by, more and more of the population started growing and growing, and the businesses started picking up. So it's a lot different, a lot bigger, a lot of different things. Look at our schools, they build in schools and things of that nature. That is great. But at that time, you come in and wow, it's kind of a slow pace a little bit, you go in, but the mall was the place. The mall was the place. Everybody met there, everybody saw there. And then the population grew. Yeah, and as you can see today, many cultures today, and it's great. It's fantastic because you have, again, the African, the Asian, and the Spanish population. Everybody that's here just in a nice, it's close knit. I see, because it's just beautiful,
What would you say is the biggest difference from growing up in Brooklyn, which is very populated, close buildings, to somewhere like rural Worthington, Minnesota, where it's very spacious?
Well, that's like slamming on the brakes. Okay, it's like the hustle and bustle. You go anywhere. When I went to school, I went to Heron High School in New York City. I had to take the bus to the train station and then take the train and change 3 stops, three different trains to get to Manhattan from Brooklyn. So I had to do that, and you were going you started out at 6:30. I had to grab the train, the subway, actually is what it was, the subway at 6:30 in the morning. So you had to be up at crack of dawn, get in there, get on the bus take you to the train station, go down into the subway, grab your trains, 6:30. So you got to school just about 7:45. So that was trying, but you traveled with the rush hour also, with the people going in, and you're rushing in there, you just look like, you're running into the train and stuff. So it's go, go, go. And then with my traveling through in the military, you kind of went, yeah, okay, you see the different cultures there, which helped out a lot too. Going into, like Rome, Italy, and Germany, and Hawaii, Japan, Korea. I spent a year in Korea. That was a lot. I love the food there. The people, forget about it. They're just great. They're just great. They're just wonderful. But when I got to Worthington, I said, well, we're going to make it home after we decided. I said, it was like slamming on the brakes. It was nice. I liked it. Still, just love it because it's slow paced, a little bit. It just kind of, it doesn't take you, when you ask for directions, in New York City, they say it takes you 20 minutes or 15 minutes to get somewhere. Where here you say, oh yeah, a couple of miles, just a couple of miles down the road. See the difference. It's going to take you 20 minutes. My sister, when she came to visit me from New York City just a few months ago, and she still lives in New York, and she said, wow, this is really cool. I said, wow, yeah. I said, it's easy living, you jump in a car and you can get somewhere. She says to travel 6 miles, like from here to Brewster, to travel 6 miles, It took her, what did she say, almost an hour because of traffic. So I love it. Yeah, it's like slamming on the brakes. It's like rush, rush, rush to easy does it. We'll get there.
When you first got to Worthington, what's one of the first things you noticed that's different here than other places you've been?
Then in New York, other places, well, you know, the schools, just wonderful schools. The stores, how they were, more, more like the little mom and pop stores, when you see them, you didn't go in, you knew the people by first names. Oh, all the stores that I saw here, now they're out of business. Michael's Steakhouse at one time was here, where my wife and I celebrated many anniversaries. The stores, schools, and also just the safety, just the safety of it. Yeah, the police, you knew them by name and everything, pretty much. And it's like, it's to try to explain it from New York to here, the difference is just like you just enjoyed it. Like with Worthington, that sign that was outside of Worthington, it says, "You'll get to love us," and we did. We were only going to stay 6 months. If you do the math, from '83, we've been here a while. It's been a minute. I hope I answered that. Okay. Yeah.
Is there anything that?
Excuse me.
Wow, I feel like we covered everything today. I feel like it was.
Yeah.
Is there any lasting remarks or things you would want to share about your experience time?
Well, Worthington is an awesome place. I'm now more Minnesotan than I am New Yorker. Okay, because I still have a little bit of my slang, a little bit, but like I always tell the folks, I say, yeah, everything happens on the corner, over there in the corner, because like in New York. But Worthington is a wonderful place to live in. And I say we've been in almost 30 years now, if not more. And I raised my children here. I have 7 granddaughters. I have 2 daughters, 7 granddaughters. My house is full of girls, I'm telling you. Just forget about it, right? But it was a great place to raise them, a safe place. The people are wonderful. The people are great. You can stop, and you ask a question to someone and say, "Hey, what about how do I find this?" And they're more than gracious to help you. And that's what I really liked about Worthington. From what I told the generation today is to stay in school, learn, get your diplomas, get to college, because they're the future. Guys like me, what am I, 68? We don't grow older, younger, okay? We don't get younger every day. And one day I'm gonna need possibly the young folks that are in this school that are learning to be our future. And I pray for them every day. I pray for them every day. And I asked the Lord, one day I had some people say, well, why do you know so much? How come it's not the knowing, like my brain would be like this if I held everything, or my head would be like that. But how come you know so much? I said, well, every day I just wake up in the morning, I open the Bible, I look at it, and I say, and I ask the Lord for wisdom every day. And he gives me the wisdom and the patience, and that's what I do every day. And that's what I do. That's where you get it.
One question I do have is, I know you know Spanish. Is something you picked up later in life or something you grew up with?
I grew up with it. I learned Spanish as I went. Growing up, my dad taught us how to, because like they have some folk, they could read. They could read it. Some can't write it, like me. I was going, okay. So as we learned growing up, my dad would teach us with the Spanish newspaper, El Diario, back in New York City. That's what it was called. El Diario La Prensa, they called it. And with the comic strips. So what he did is he had us read the comic strips. He said, okay, because the comic strips are short, they had the pictures, they had short sentences and everything else. And what we didn't understand, he said, what you don't understand, write it out. What you don't understand, the word or anything, write it out. Okay? And then come show me what it is. And then so when you were reading it, and he had us write it, so see, we learned how to write. in Spanish and stuff. So I am Puerto Rican. I am Puerto Rican. My mom and dad are from Isabela, Puerto Rico. I am Puerto Rican, and then born in Brooklyn, New York, and everything. And you learn as you go. You know the same thing. A lot of times you can learn how to speak it, but if you don't put yourself down there to learn how to read and write it, speaking is one thing. Reading and write it is additional too. Learning that also, and yeah. So I've always not picked up being Puerto Rican, and Spanish. You just okay. Let's just go to it, and we'll learn it, and we'll get it done. You know. I enjoyed that. Yeah, it's my dad had a way of teaching stuff, like that. He said, and which is ingenious. I said, here, read these. If you don't understand, write it out. That's where he picked up the writing, which later worked out great because when I wrote letters in the military to write my mom, I could write it in Spanish because my mom knew no English. My mom, yeah. She knew no English at all. She always talked to us in Spanish, and she wrote us in Spanish. I said, oh boy, okay. So when we learn, then we get it. We wrote it, and we sent it. We sent letters to my mom and stuff like that. That way, yep. So yeah, that's how we did that.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, gracias a usted. Gracias por estar a mí. Un placer estar aquí contigo.
And
Oscar.
thank you for letting us to get to know a little bit more of your story and
Yeah.
someone part of our community for years that has done so much that we get a little insight to behind the curtains.
Yeah, one of the things that in order to do the work like we did as community connectors, you had to have the folks that are out there in all the different offices, in your electric companies, in your attorneys' offices, your hospitals. Without them out there, then where do they go? So having the folks to send them to get help, that's a big part of it, and they're willing always to help everyone that's out there, and that made it a lot easier also for the people.
Well,
It's been a pleasure being here with you. I hope I covered. It's not about me. It's not. It's about all of us. All of us are part of this community. All of us, and a pillar. All of us are pillars because everybody makes a community.